Hello, phone number 209-380-6126. Can you please provide your name?
Recording in progress.
Morning and welcome to the May 18th Victim Compensation Board meeting. For those of you in the room that are appearing on a specific agenda item or wish to offer public comment, the microphones at the podium and tables are directional and require that you hold them fairly close to your mouth when speaking to ensure your testimony is captured by our audio equipment. For members and participants who are appearing via Zoom, if you cannot hear the presenter, please use the comment feature to note that as staff are monitoring the comments in real time. Council, would you please call the roll?
Member Becton. Member Becton. I see that.
Oh, well.
Member Becton, if you can hear us, we show you without audio at this time. Chair Ravel, you have a quorum. Would you like to continue or hold for Member Becton to connect?
Well, I guess we've just got informational items coming up initially. Maybe we'll wait just another couple of minutes and then we can get started just to see if we can get Member Becton in. All right. Okay, I think we're all here now. So sorry for the delay, everybody, but now we've got everybody. So let's go ahead.
Member Becton,
Aye. Present.
Member Johnson, Chair Ravel,
Present.
Good morning. Item 1 is the approval of the minutes for the March 16th, 2023 board meeting.
Is there any discussion, addition, or corrections to the minutes on this item from the board member? Okay, do I have a motion to approve item 1?
I move approval of the March 16th, 2023 minutes.
I second.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Seeing none, council, please call the roll.
motion before the board is approval of the March 16th, 2023 board meeting minutes. Member Becton,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Ravel, motion passes.
Item 2 is the approval of the minutes for the April 12th, 2023 board meeting.
Is there any discussion, or additions or corrections to these minutes from the board members? Do I have a motion to approve item 2?
I move approval of the April 12th, 2023 minutes.
I second.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Council, please call the roll.
Motion before the board is approval of the April 12th, 2023 board meeting minutes. Member Becton,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is public comment. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda. As any items discussed during public comment have not been agendized, the board is not permitted to take any action on these matters at this meeting. Please note, if you wish to offer public comment regarding items 7 through 9, there will be a separate call for public comment when each item is heard by the board. For those on the phone, if you previously indicated your desire to offer comments during this meeting, we will be calling on you by name or phone number. For those participating via Zoom, please raise your hand if you wish to offer comment, and we will acknowledge you and let you know when it is your turn to speak. Go ahead, Ms. Petros.
Ms. Petros, you're on mute.
Good morning.
We will
Good morning. I'm afraid I'm hearing different people at the same time, so please excuse me for the delay. But good morning, all.
Ms. Petros.
Yes, my name is Margaret Petros. I'm the executive director with Mothers Against Murder, Victim Help. Good morning. Good morning. I'm afraid I'm hearing different people at the same time, so please excuse me for the delay. But good morning, all.
Ms. Petros.
Petros,
My
Can you
name is
mute?
Margaret Petros.
Can you
I'm the
please
executive
mute the
director
YouTube
with
video that you're watching?
Murder, Okay.
Good
Victim
morning.
Help. Good morning. I'm afraid I'm hearing different. Okay, I am sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning to you. I'm Margaret Petros, the executive director with Mothers Against Murder. And I would like to bring this to your attention again. I've addressed it in the past, but I would like at this public meeting. So the program requires verifications from IRS and FTB when victims, applicants apply for wage and support losses. And you're now doing it for the previous year before the crime, the year of the crime, and recently I came across a claim that required verification and requested verification from FTB the year after the crime, which makes absolutely no sense to me. And I think in that case, the board is overreaching their powers and really violating victims' privacy when really have no business to know why and how much was the victim making after the crime. In addition to that, my feeling is the records are not required under Government Code Section 13952C3, which says the board shall not require an applicant to submit documentation from Internal Revenue Service and the Franchise Tax Board. It goes on at the end to say the board may require and use documentation from these entities to verify the amount of compensation for income or support loss. My belief, this is done by the legislators for a reason, with the intent that if there are other ways to verify the income and support loss, it should be used, such as pay stubs, declaration from the employer, bank statements. For many reasons, victims are not always able to file their taxes. And if you're going to require it, I've asked in the past for the board not to deny claims because of tax records are not available or the victim has delayed the filing. It should be, and in the past, that's how it was done, is to process it as fully unverified. That way, the victim can come back anytime in the future when they file their taxes and submit them to you. Because when you recommend it be denied, it comes before the board, it's finally denied, then the only other option is there is 60 days to go to court. Yes, you've told me that you could take it back and reconsider it, but I really think that is wrong. Once it's gone through the system for a final denial, taking it back is not okay. So it's best not to decide on it and deny it formally, just process it as unverified. So these are things that are impacting a lot of the victims I've worked with, and being denied this very important benefit is devastating to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Petros, for your comment. Recognizing that we can't talk about it as a board since the item wasn't agendized. Council, did you have a comment on this item?
What I would say is that at the January board meeting, I brought before the board the ability for the board to make amendments to its regulations. And this is one of the regulations that we are looking at because we recognize some of our victims may not fall under the criteria for having to file tax returns. However, if they did file tax returns, it is important that we get that information. And to address Ms. Petros with regard to post-tax returns, the statute allows CalVCB to ask for any information necessary to verify the claim. And there are some instances where claimants will apply to us and claim that they are not employed. However, we have evidence that indicates otherwise. So there may be some instances where we do request tax returns to verify that information post-crime. So the regulation does currently require tax returns, and that is something that we are looking at as our packet, recognizing that some of our victims may not have met the threshold to have to file tax returns.
Thank you, Council. Are there any other public commenters?
I see Ken. Ken, if you can go ahead. You're on mute, Ken. We can't hear you.
I don't know if it's on our end or perhaps if he could. Okay, thank you. In the meantime, is there anyone else commenting publicly? Okay, thank you.
I don't see anyone.
Okay, we will sit tight, or perhaps Ken could dial in through the phone line if this isn't working through Zoom.
So if you have public comment and you're not able to use the Zoom, we sent you a phone number that you may dial into.
Okay, hello?
Okay, we can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Is this on Zoom or is it the actual call?
On the call.
Okay. Yes, I apologize. My name is Kenneth Martin. I am actually one of the victims that applied for victim compensation in August of 2020. I was in a hit and run motorcycle accident that left me, with multiple injuries. I'm actually permanently disabled. I filed for victim compensation in September of 2020, like I was told to do it by a police officer. And it has been an extreme process. I've been back and forth to surgeries. I'm actually going on a 5th surgery now because there's pretty much nothing more that they can do. We're just trying to alter my body at this point. And I've been applying for the compensation and actually have been denied multiple times. I was actually approved and you guys paid me, but based on another source of income that I think which I was told you can't double dip, but these are things I didn't know. I didn't receive any type of income for, I want to say 9 months after my accident. So I was homeless, I was couch surfing, I was doing all these things. I lost everything. And I appealed and done a lot of the reconsiderations. And I was just told that I can kind of be a part of the call and the Zoom and stuff like that, just my testimony. But I also seen that you guys are still kind of denying a lot of these things. And I actually, from the last hearing that you guys had, I was told that the reason I was denied is because there's no evidence to support the fact that my injuries are as a direct result or directly related to the crime. And I took it upon myself to request the documents from you guys, actually, which would be Cal BCD, which would be the disability statements. You guys told me about the medical records and all of those things. And I have submitted those documents. And my surgeons and doctors and practitioners have answered the questions that you guys have asked, which would be, is this accident, are these injuries a direct result of this crime, which would be yes. Is this patient, how long is this patient, injured? It actually states, from August 8th, 2020 to December 31st, 99, which means permanent. There's no date of change. And she's notated that there's going to be no change in function. And then also that, I haven't worked since the accident. I have not done any type of thing to earn any money. So I've just been going through a lot. I don't want to go into so much detail because it is a lot. This is 2.5 years that, nothing's changed. And as a victim, I've been reaching out to you guys. I'm always hearing this the payment of last resort. These are all the things. I'm not getting any source of help. And, like I said, I'm homeless, so I'm constantly looking for housing, and I haven't even gotten that. I haven't gotten physical help because, now that there's so many people who are hurt and injured out there, I can't even get physical therapy for myself. That's 10 months behind. And like I said, I have to have another surgery, which I find out tomorrow when that is. And they're moving a muscle from my arm to my leg for me to live. And I don't know how I'm going to be able to do that without any help. I'm 30 years old. This is not what I wanted. I was a working individual. I had a great job. I was making $30 an hour almost in 2020. That's very unheard of from a lot of people. So to go from, I was having my life together to I'm reduced to almost nothing and cannot figure it out is really unfair, especially as a victim. And I'm constantly fighting and fighting and fighting for a source of help. And there's a lot of, it may not be, I'm sure it's not just me, but there's a lot of victims out here who really need help. And, we're constantly trying to prove these things and show you guys that, this is really happening. And, I don't hear from anyone. We never hear from anyone. So it's like, nobody ever gets the victim side of the story rather than, papers. And I understand, we got to go by the book, go by the paperwork. But, there are like a lot of real life situations happening to people who are victims every minute and every day. And sometimes, like, I think you guys forget about that. And I just wanted to, just reassure you guys that and just address the fact that a lot of the reasons that I have been denied, all of the answers are right there in front of your face. Not to be rude, but it's just like, they're right there. I try to make sure I get you guys everything possible to just prove that, hey, like, this is really going on. And I just want you guys to kind of be consider that it's not, like the person before spoke, like a lot of this stuff is, when we are denied, it is devastating because we don't have nothing else. I don't have nothing else. I can't speak for everybody, but I don't have nothing else. So when I hear no from not just you guys, from, housing, from, disability, from anything, like, there's no way we can help you. There's nothing more than we can do. And then, I hear from doctors and surgeons, there's nothing more that we can do. Sometimes we do outweigh our worth. Like, is there anything out here for us? So I just want you guys to consider that when you guys really look into these victims. There's a lot of things that really go on to, into this every day. Like, my accident was in 2020. Here we are in 2023, and I'm still fighting for something, And I apologize if I'm just like dragging on, but I just really want people to understand, like, from a victim's perspective, like, this is a lot to deal with. And I'm not just dealing with this. Like I said, I'm doing housing, I'm doing, disability, because, you got to fight with them every day and every 6 months because they're denying you for every so reason. I'm trying to, get my surgery and get them to, get me more help so I can be able to physically move on with my life. I can't move my left arm as a regular arm. So imagine trying to go every day, not being able to move or function the way you would like, and people are still telling you there's nothing you can do. So I would like you guys to think about that sometime. if we're coming to you, sometimes it is the last resort. You know, maybe there should be programs where you guys can directly link to the victims and actually speak to them sometimes. So that's kind of all I wanted to say, but I definitely want to, just let you guys know that my name is Kenneth Martin. So I think I'm item number 3. But or 3 or 4, but I just want you guys to know that, yeah, like all of my stuff has been there. I have been really suffering through a lot of this, just trying to get any type of help. That's really what I'm asking for, just help to move my life forward.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, and sorry about the technical difficulties, and I'm very sorry to hear about your accident and the suffering that you've had since then.
Yeah, we ride motorcycles, we understand the life, but there are some things that come after, where we got to be compassionate and empathetic, other people, like there's a lot of stuff going on. I hate hearing cases and where people are suffering immensely. It's like, what are we really doing here sometimes?
Thank you for taking the time to appear before the board, Mr. Martin.
No problem. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. We will move to item 4, which is the executive officer's statement, which will be presented by Executive Officer Linda Gledhill.
Morning. I have a couple updates regarding our trauma recovery centers. As you may recall, last year's budget included money for a pilot program for regional trauma recovery centers, or TRCs, one in Northern California and one in the Central Valley. CalVCB issued a notice of funds available, a NOFA, for both last fall and initially received an application for the Northern TRC. That contract, which was approved by this board at our meeting in November, was with the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. We had been working to execute that contract when we received word that the DA's office wished to delay implementation. As you may know, Alameda County has a new DA as of January, and she has stated that she wants to focus their work on their existing TRC. And therefore, after further conversations, the DA's office has declined the grant award. So we have reissued that NOFA, and we'll have more information for you, we hope, at the July board meeting. As you will recall, only existing TRCs are eligible to run the pilot programs. Additionally, last week, the governor released his revised budget, and that traditionally results in a change to the TRC contracts that you approved in March for this upcoming year. This year, however, there was only a marginal change in the Prop 47 allocation to the TRCs. However, for the first time, as a part of last year's budget, which included money for TRCs, some monies that are allocated but unspent can be rolled over. So we continue to monitor how much the TRCs have actually spent, and we won't know the final allocations until the end of the fiscal year. Again, we'll continue to keep board updated on those numbers as they evolve. And finally, in April, as I mentioned before, we marked Crime Victims' Rights Week and Denim Day. CalVCB collected denim here at our offices, nearly 100 pairs of jeans and other denim items that we are donating to a local nonprofit that helps victims of sexual assault. During Crime Victims' Rights Week, I was able to attend several local events honoring crime victims. It was an opportunity to talk to those who have benefited from CalVCB services, and it's always a great pleasure to be able to go out into the community and talk to those, let them know about our services and hear how we've been able to help. And so, very rewarding effort. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Officer Gledhill. It's very disappointing about Alameda County. It's just such a tremendous need for those services. So I'm hopeful that another existing TRC will be able to perform them, because, as you know, it's extremely important to the community. Are there any questions or comments from the board members?
I just had a question on the timeline for the new NOFA. What's the
NOFA, the responses are due in early June. So hopefully then we'll be able to, if we get responses, we'll be able to score them and have them back to the board for the July board meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, item 5 is a legislative update, which will be presented by Executive Officer Linda Gledhill.
Thank you. The legislative update is in your board binder. The Appropriations Committee in each house is meeting today to hear bills on the suspense file, which will determine a large majority of whether or not bills move forward or are held for the session. In addition to the bills that are noted in your binder, AB 1551 by Assemblymember Gibson, which would increase the maximum support loss that may be paid to children of victims killed by drunk drivers, has been added to the suspense hearing that's being held today. Also, since the report was printed, AB 1187 by Assemblymember Quirk Silva, which would authorize CalVCB to reimburse services provided by Child Life Specialist, has passed out of the Assembly Appropriations Committee and was ordered to the Assembly floor. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Officer Gledhill. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this item?
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none. We will move to item 6, which is the contract update, which will be presented by Executive Officer Linda Gledhill.
Thank you. The contract report this month is purely informational. All of the items are able to be executed without board approval and are for IT and other regular course of business items.
Thank you, Officer Gledhill. Are there any questions or comments on this item from the board?
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Item 7 is the Penal Code Section 4900 claim of Johnny Chowinski, which will be presented by Chief Counsel Kim Gutierrez.
Good morning. On May 12th, 2021, Johnny Chowinski filed an application as an erroneously convicted felon with the California Victim Compensation Board. That application is based on his 2002 still valid convictions for assault with a firearm upon a peace officer, criminal threats, corporal injury, and discharging a firearm. The claim seeks $949,200, which represents payment for 6,780 days of imprisonment. The Attorney General objected to the claim, arguing the evidence fails to prove Mr. Chowinski's innocence by a preponderance. As explained in detail in the proposed decision, the claim is recommended for denial, as the hearing officer agrees that Mr. Chowinski has failed to meet his burden to prove by a preponderance of evidence that it is more likely than not that he is innocent of the alleged crimes. Mr. Chowinski represented himself throughout these proceedings, and the Office of the Attorney General was represented by Deputy Attorney General Dina Petroshenko.
Thank you, Counsel. I don't believe Mr. Chowinski's in the room. Mr. Chowinski, are you on the Zoom? If Mr. Chowinski isn't present, then we can hear from Ms. Petroshenko from the Attorney General's office.
Thank you. I did receive an email. I think the board did also, that Mr. Chowinski intended to be here I think it was even as of yesterday, maybe he responded. So I'm not sure about his absence. In any case, the burden here lies with Mr. Chowinski. As the board noted, his 7 violent felony convictions remain valid even after about 2 decades worth of litigation in the state and federal courts. His evidence that he has presented is unpersuasive, unreliable, and does not meet his burden to prove that he's actually innocent of these crimes. I otherwise submit on the response letter that I prepared and submitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Petroshenko. Is there any discussion on this item by the board? Do I have a motion on item 7?
I move to adopt the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Johnny Chowinski.
I second.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Seeing none, Counsel, will you please call the roll?
Motion before the board is adoption of the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Johnny Chewinski. Member Becton,
Aye.
Member Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Actually, excuse me, if it'd be all right, I see that if we could take an item out of order, there's a member of the public who intended to comment during the comment on items not on the agenda. So if we could invite Ms. Loratelli to make her public comment before we go on to item 8.
Hi, thank you very much. Today, the board is reconsidering my wage and disability claim. And I've spent the last several weeks working with a rep from Senator Eggman's office trying to figure out what records were needed to properly reconsider. It's been a bit of a struggle, but I think my past medical providers and past employer and past and present therapists were able to send in the authentic documentation that the board needed. With that being said, I just thought I would come on today and communicate just a little bit about what life is like after leaving a domestically abusive relationship. First, if you have children who have also been abused, you have to go to the family courts. There is no other mechanism. Regardless of police involvement or EPOs, you must. And this is dangerous to do without an attorney. And if you're lucky, you get to hire one. And most of them are terrible. Most of us are also hit with the staggering realization that we too were abused as children because we were conditioned to accept abuse and were never taught about what it looked like. And if I could add, the worst parts are the hidden parts that don't leave bruises or broken bones. So now we realize that we're facing generational trauma and abuse, and we desperately want to stop. Want that to stop with us and our children. We learn the signs and symptoms in our children, and we get scared and concerned with each new sign that crops up, from behavioral and developmental issues to ADHD-like symptoms, to self-harm, to suicidal ideations, and the whole buffet of mental health disorders. It's overwhelming and scary. And depending on how long we've been in it, our bodies and our minds have been worn down. We're battered with stress-related illnesses and mental health challenges of our own, but we have to cover it all up and suck it all up for family court. Because if the judge even so much as smells weakness on a protective parent, you're no longer qualified to care for your children, and they're given to their abuser. If we're the lucky ones, with enough evidence and witnesses to our abuse, we can cover up and appear calm, cool, and collected, and appear that we can work and provide for our children. We maybe get to protect our kids for a little while. From my own experience and from volunteering and advocating, the children do not get to be protected for long. Eventually, this whole heap of a mess causes a breakdown or a slowdown of sorts. Because I want to be clear, victims of long-time domestic abuse are not healed in 6 months of therapy, especially when they're court-ordered to contact with their abuser. It is a lifetime of half of the population telling us to shut up, be quiet, don't talk about it. It wasn't that bad. Others had it worse. I'm sure they didn't intend it, but they love their children and need time with them. Oh, we can't write that in your chart because I'm the abuser's doctor too, and that would be harmful to them. So I'll put you off work for something else. We don't want to get involved. Your child is having PTSD, but they need to go on visits or the judge will get mad. Of course, you have to coordinate visits with your rapist and abuser. Who else is going to do it? Maybe we should order you a custody evaluation with your abuser. These are just some of the things I've been told. I couldn't work for a time. My children are still going through it. Finding programs and getting them paid for has been like a full-time job. Dealing with schools and 504s and trying to have life be normal also is like a full-time job. My children are just now, almost 4 years later, learning that they can be who they are and keep themselves safe in society. Keeping housing is hard, and you're constantly balancing on a cliff of, am I going to have to move out this year? I was able to start my own part-time business in 2021 and have kept afloat while managing my own illnesses that I received from chronic stress, and managing my children's healing at the same time. I've met wonderful care providers and have found wonderful programs for my children. And thank you to the board for the help we have gotten to date. Lastly, I wanted to advocate for reforms to all state-run programs for victims. The processes are at times re-victimizing and traumatizing. There is a misconception that we don't want to talk about it. Most of us don't mind talking about it. We just want to know we will be believed when we do talk about it, and we want full support and help. We desperately need help. Getting help shouldn't cost us a dime, and it shouldn't be a full-time job. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Loratelli. I appreciate you taking the time to offer your perspective. It's very helpful for us to hear this, and just want to say I'm really sorry for the horrible traumas that you've experienced.
Thank you.
Item 8.
Okay, we can move to item 8, which is the Penal Code Section 4900 claim of Jeanette Turner, which will be presented by Chief Counsel Kim Gutierrez.
Thank you. Jeanette Turner filed an application as an erroneously convicted felon with the California Victim Compensation Board on June 22nd of 2020. That application was based on her 1997 felony conviction for perjury, which conviction was vacated in 2006. There's a long procedural history related to this claim, which is very detailed in the proposed decision. The Office of the Attorney General, in its response to the claim, recommended that the claim should be granted. As there is no objection from the Office of the Attorney General, compensation is automatic under Penal Code Section 4900, subsection B. Accordingly, the proposed decision recommends compensation in the amount of $80,920, which represents $140 per day for the 578 days Ms. Turner was wrongfully imprisoned. Throughout these proceedings, Ms. Turner has been represented by Philip Cook of the Law Office of Cook and Marshall. The Office of the Attorney General has been represented by Deputy Attorney General Heather Gimley.
Thank you, counsel. We will hear first from Mr. Cook on behalf of Ms. Turner.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Mrs. Turner and I are present today via Zoom, and we simply are here to answer questions. We respectfully, in receipt of the board's hearing officer's recommendation to grant the award, and we concur.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Ms. Turner, would you like to address the board?
No, it's been a long time and I hope it's coming to an end.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. We will hear now from Ms. Gimley from the Attorney General's office.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm prepared to submit the matter based on the proposed decision before the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gimley. Are there any, is there any discussion on this item from the board? Do I have a motion on item 8?
I move to adopt the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Patrick Willis.
Jeanette Turner.
Jeanette Turner. And I'll second.
I'm sorry, Jeanette Turner.
Yeah.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Seeing none, counsel, please call the roll.
Motion to be decided is the adoption of the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Jeanette Turner. Member Becton.
Aye.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 9 is the Penal Code Section 4900 claim of Patrick Willis, which will be presented by Chief Counsel Kim Gutierrez.
Patrick Willis filed an application with the California Victim Compensation Board as an erroneously convicted felon on December 12th of 2022. That application was based on his 2013 convictions for 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances, which convictions were vacated by a writ of habeas corpus in 2019 and then dismissed in 2021 after the jury was unable to reach a verdict upon retrial. As there was no objection filed by the Office of the Attorney General, compensation is automatic under Penal Code Section 4900 subsection B. Accordingly, the proposed decision recommends compensation in the amount of $441,840, which represents $140 per day for each of the 3,156 days that Mr. Willis was wrongfully imprisoned. Mr. Willis is represented in these proceedings by Lindsay Battles of McLean, Bednarski, and Litt, and the Office of the Attorney General is represented by Deputy Attorney General Sharon Loeffner.
Thank you, counsel. We will hear first from Ms. Battles.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the Attorney General's office and the board for the prompt consideration and approval of Mr. Willis's claim. He has suffered immensely for the conviction of 2 murders that he didn't commit, and also for the nearly 9 years that he was incarcerated as an innocent person. The compensation that's being approved today will enable him to take at least the first steps in rebuilding his life after this very tragic ordeal. And we also want to recognize that we understand that there has been no justice for the 2 murder victims in this case, and we very much.
Is there any discussion on this item by the board? Do I have a motion on item 9?
I move to adopt the hearing officer's proposed decision, Penal Code Section 4900 matter, Patrick Willis.
I second.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Seeing none, counsel, please call the roll.
The motion before the board is approval of the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Patrick Willis. Member Becton.
Aye.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Our next item is closed session. The board will convene into closed session under Government Code Section 11126 sub C3 to discuss numbers 1 through 129 of the Victim Compensation Program. And just as a note for Member Becton, we will be conducting closed session via Zoom. The board is reconvening into open session under Government Code 11126 sub C3. Just to note that we will be pulling item 14 from the victim compensation program this month and won't be approving that item today. So do I have a motion for numbers 1 through 129, except for number 14 of the victim compensation program?
I move that we adopt the recommendations.
Hold for a second.
And I second.
Council, please call the roll.
Motion before the board is approval of the numbers 1 through 129 of the Victim Compensation Program with the exception of item 14. Member Becton,
Aye.
Member Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Is there any other business that needs to come before the board today? Seeing and hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that the meeting be adjourned.
I second.
Council, please call the roll.
Member Becton,
Aye.
Member Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The next meeting is scheduled to occur on July